What happens when a self-made CEO puts on a janitor's uniform to see if his motel staff are really treating people right? Xavier Graves had built his motel chain from a single roadside stop in Arkansas to 20 clean, affordable locations across the Midwest. He came from nothing, slept in his car at 22, scrubbed toilets just to afford groceries, and didn't see his first real paycheck until he was 30. That struggle shaped him, but success changed the way he ran things. Now, he sat in a glass office in Kansas City, depending on district managers to report what was going on in the field. Lately, those reports didn't sit right with him. Customer reviews at the Springfield Motel, the third one he ever opened, had dropped fast. Complaints about dirty rooms, rude staff, and long wait times. The district manager, a guy named Joel, brushed it off as just some chronic complainers. But Xavier felt something off. He hadn't visited that location in over 2 years. Most of the staff were new. No one there had ever met him. So he made a decision. He dyed his salt and pepper hair fully brown, trimmed his beard close, and put on a pair of thick glasses. He had a friend from college mock up a fake ID with the name Tommy Green. When he applied online for a part-time housekeeping gig, he used a burner phone, a made-up address, and listed a fake work history at a cleaning company that didn't exist anymore. The motel's front desk called him 2 days later. "Are you available to start Monday? We really need someone." Perfect, staff shortage. That explained the messy rooms. He showed up early wearing scuffed-up sneakers and a faded polo shirt. The lobby was clean but cold. No music, no smiles. He stood awkwardly by the check-in desk for 2 minutes before someone finally noticed him. "You here for the housekeeping position?" a young voice asked. She looked about 19 with tired eyes and a mop bucket in one hand. Her name tag reads Sierra. "Yeah." "Tommy Green," he said, extending his hand. She didn't take it. "Cool, follow me, you'll meet the manager." The manager, a man in his mid-30s named Vince, sat in a cramped office behind the lobby eating a sandwich while scrolling on his phone. He didn't stand up. "You're the new cleaner?" Vince asked without looking up. "Yeah, Tommy. You got shoes with non-slip soles?" "I do." "Good, you'll shadow Sierra today, clock in and don't be late again." Xavier raised an eyebrow. "This is my first day." Vince looked up like he hadn't heard. "Whatever. Just don't start giving me problems." Sierra shot Xavier a look, not surprised, just a tired, quiet warning. They started on the second floor. The hall smelled faintly of mildew. Sierra handed him gloves and a cart. She moved fast, quiet. Room after room, Xavier noticed she did more than she had to, refolding the towels if they weren't perfect, wiping down things customers wouldn't even see. She didn't cut corners. "Do you always work alone?" Xavier asked. "Usually," she said, not looking at him. "We're 3 housekeepers short. One quit last week, another's out sick." "Do they get sick leave?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Not unless Vince likes you." They cleaned 6 rooms in 2 hours. At the 7th, Sierra's phone buzzed. She looked at it, then frowned. "What's wrong?" Xavier asked. "That's Ava," she said. "She's the other housekeeper on shift today. She's been throwing up since last night. She just asked Vince if she could go home." Xavier's stomach knotted. "And Vince told her if she leaves before her shift ends, she's fired." His jaw clenched. "She's sick." "Yeah, and she's got a daughter. She can't afford to lose this job." Xavier followed her down to the laundry room where Ava was folding sheets, pale and sweating. She looked up, barely able to stand straight. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," she whispered. "Just a little stomach bug. You should go home." "I can't." Xavier turned to Sierra. "Where's Vince?" "In his office, probably eating again." He made his way back to the office. Vince was still at the desk, laughing at something on his phone. "Ava's sick," Xavier said, calm, steady. Vince shrugged. "Yeah, she always is. Every other week it's something. She's pale. She's shaking." "Not my problem. If she's not working, she's not getting paid. If she leaves, she's done." Xavier stared at him. "You're really gonna make her work like that?" "Look, man, you're new. Don't start acting like a hero. We run tight here. People call out too much, we fall behind, then I get crap from corporate." Xavier's hands curled into fists inside his pockets. He forced himself to breathe. "I'll cover her rooms," he said. Vince looked him up and down. You've been here 3 hours. Then I'll learn fast." Vince laughed. "Fine, you want to play hero, be my guest. Just don't come crying when you can't keep up." Xavier walked out, heart pounding. Not just from anger but guilt. He had trusted district managers like Joel to staff these places right, to make sure no one was being treated like this. Now he was watching it unfold up close. He found Ava again. "Go home," he said. "I'll take your rooms." Tears welled in her eyes. I don't even know your name," he smiled gently. "Tommy, just go rest." She left without another word. That night, Xavier cleaned until midnight. His back ached. His hands were raw. But he finished every room. And as he collapsed into one of the empty beds, still in his uniform, he knew this wasn't just about Springfield anymore. He had to see how deep this went. By noon the next day, Xavier's thighs burned from climbing stairs and his arms trembled after dragging out 2 overfilled laundry bins. The motel's service elevator had been broken for who knew how long. No one talked about it. They just worked around it. Sierra showed him how to wedge the bins against the wall so they wouldn't roll back down the stairs. There were no safety protocols, no extra hands, just muscle and caution. He kept his head down, working alongside her. She didn't talk much, but she moved with a rhythm that made it hard not to follow. She didn't have time for small talk, neither did he. They were halfway through stripping a room when she paused and checked the bathroom. "You hear that?" she asked. He listened. A faint knock, then another. Sierra crossed the room, opened the adjoining door that led to the room next door. An elderly woman stood inside, barefoot, clutching a towel to her chest. Her hands trembled. "I've been calling the front desk," the woman said. "No one's answering." Sierra's tone softened. "What do you need, ma'am?" "My shower won't turn off. It's scalding hot. I tried everything." She guided the woman to sit on the edge of the bed and handed her a clean robe from the cart. Xavier stepped into the bathroom, steam curling up to the ceiling. The knob spun but wouldn't catch. The water blasted from the showerhead, burning to the touch. "There's no shut-off valve in here," he said, stepping back. Sierra nodded. "Maintenance left last week. Vince said we're not hiring anyone new until the next budget cycle." Xavier frowned. "So who handles issues like this?" "Depends who's around. Sometimes Vince calls a guy he knows, but only if it's serious. Usually he tells people to deal with it or offers a refund." He dried his hands and walked back out. "This lady could have been burned." Sierra kept her voice low. "If you push too hard, he'll just cut your hours." Xavier glanced at the woman, still sitting quietly, robe clutched tight. "I'll talk to her," Sierra said. "You finish in here." He didn't respond, just nodded and got back to work. That evening, he lingered near the front desk during a shift change. A young man with a buzz cut and a stiff posture stood behind the counter, checking the register. His name tag read Noel. He looked up but didn't smile. "You knew?" he asked. "Couple days in," Xavier said. "Tommy?" Noel nodded once and went back to counting bills. "You always work evenings?" "Mostly. No one else wants to." Xavier leaned slightly on the counter, careful not to draw attention. "Quiet night, not really. Phones are down in half the rooms. Internet's been cutting out since Monday. Anybody fixing it? Doubt it." Xavier watched as a guest walked in from the parking lot, damp from the drizzle outside. She approached the desk and set down a small black duffel. "I'm in room 208, she said. "There's mold by the window and my kid's got asthma. Can we get moved?" Noel didn't look up. "We're full tonight. You don't have anything?" "Not unless someone checks out early." The woman hesitated. "Can I at least get a fan? We don't have extras." She let out a short breath. "You can't do anything." He finally looked at her. "You can check out, but we can't waive the charge unless you leave in the first hour." She stared at him, stunned. "We checked in 3 hours ago." "Then I'm sorry." She picked up the duffel and walked out without another word. Xavier waited until she was gone. "That normal?" he asked. Noel shrugged. "I don't make the policies." "Who does?" "District manager. Vince enforces them." "You ever disagree?" Noel gave him a flat look. Does it matter? He walked off toward the back office without waiting for a reply. That night, Xavier sat in a utility closet and typed quick notes into his prepaid phone. He listed everything: broken fixtures, lack of support staff, unsafe conditions. But facts weren't enough. He needed stories, faces, proof. He started arriving early, staying late, quietly observing, listening. On Thursday, a delivery truck pulled into the lot. A man in a worn uniform hauled boxes of cleaning supplies into the back entrance. Xavier offered to help him unload. "You work here?" the man asked. "Housekeeping." "Then you've met Vince." Xavier raised an eyebrow. "You know him. He used to work at another motel I delivered to. Same routine. Runs the place as cheap as possible. I've seen him send back shipments over a $5 difference." "Sounds about right." The man shook his head. "You all deserve better." Xavier carried the boxes down to the supply room. Inside, shelves sagged under half-used bottles and crumpled packaging. He noticed expired disinfectant, a cracked mop bucket. Supplies rationed so tightly Sierra had once refilled an empty soap dispenser with diluted hand sanitizer. He found her restocking towels. "You get these from the truck?" he asked. "No, those are locked in the office." "Vince gives us what he thinks we need." He stepped back, taking in the barely stocked shelf. "And if you run out, we improvise." That night, Xavier pulled Sierra aside near the vending machines. The hallway was empty. "You ever think about leaving?" She didn't answer right away. "Then, I've got my GED test this summer. If I pass, I'm applying to the community college in Joplin." "You're smart. You shouldn't be stuck here." She looked at the floor. "I've been here since I was 16. My mom worked the front desk until her back gave out." "I don't know anything else." He watched her carefully. "What would help you leave?" Her laugh was dry and quiet. "Money, time, a boss who doesn't dock hours for being 5 minutes late." He nodded and didn't press further. On Friday, a storm rolled in. The ceiling in room 312 started leaking. A family of 4 had to be moved to a smoking room because there was nowhere else to go. The father argued with Noel at the desk. Xavier watched from the hallway. "You want us to sleep in a room that stinks like cigarettes? It's the only one we've got. You knew this place had roof problems and still rented it out." Noel didn't flinch. "Talk to management." Xavier stepped away before the man could see him. He needed to keep his cover. But his patience was thinning. That night, when he returned to his borrowed room, he found a note slid under the door. It was scribbled in pencil on receipt paper. "Tommy, Vince told Ava she's getting written up for Monday. She's crying in the laundry room. Thought you should know." No signature. But the handwriting looked familiar. He found Ava still folding sheets, her face red, eyes puffy. "I didn't call out," she said quietly. "I stayed. I finished everything. I don't understand." He didn't say anything. He just sat beside her on a plastic crate. He said, "I abandoned my post. That I left the cart unattended, but I was throwing up." Xavier asked, "Did you tell him you had permission to leave?" She wiped her face. "He said there's no record of that, and I shouldn't take instructions from other staff." His chest tightened, but he kept his voice level. "You don't deserve this." She gave a short, bitter laugh. "None of us do." He stayed there until the shift ended, watching the fluorescent lights buzz overhead. By the weekend, he had seen enough, more than enough, and he was done waiting. Something had to break. Saturday morning started with the sharp clang of a dropped mop bucket somewhere down the hall. Xavier had barely slept. His back protested with every step, but he dressed quickly and headed toward the noise. Sierra stood over the bucket, water creeping across the tile. Her jaw was tight. "Sorry," she said without looking at him. "Didn't see the edge of the cart." "You okay?" Xavier asked. She knelt to grab a towel. "I'm fine." He took another towel from the cart and helped her mop up the spill. As they worked, she kept glancing toward the stairwell. "What's going on?" he asked. "Vince added 3 more checkouts to our list. Said the morning shift didn't show." He waited a beat. "You tell him we're already at full load." She gave him a look that said she had, and it hadn't mattered. They cleaned in silence for nearly 30 minutes. Then, as they stepped into a room near the back of the building, they found the sheets still damp from last night's leak. The air smelled faintly of rot. A bucket sat beneath the window, water half an inch deep. I told him this room was unfit 2 days ago, Sierra said. Still booking it? Walk-ins. He thinks they're less likely to leave bad reviews. Xavier stared at the ceiling. A dark stain had spread wider since he'd last seen it. The drywall sagged slightly, swollen from moisture. Have you had any training on what to do if mold spreads? He asked. She shook her head. We just air it out and spray bleach. That's what we're told. He looked around the unit, noting the broken vent cover and the warped windowsill. It's not safe. I know it's not safe. But when we say something, he says we're being dramatic. They stripped the bed and propped open the door. As they worked, a man in a rumpled blazer stepped into the hallway, phone pressed to his ear. He stopped short when he saw them. You staff? He asked. Xavier nodded. Housekeeping. Good. Someone flooded the lobby bathroom, waters seeping under the vending machines. Sierra stood up straighter. There's no wet floor sign down there. The man didn't respond, just muttered something into his phone and walked off. Xavier closed the door behind him. There's no way this place is passing inspections. Sierra gave a short laugh. We haven't had one in months. Vince always finds a way to dodge them. How? He says the inspector's out of town, or that we're between management changes. He makes excuses. And when they finally do show up, he gives them a free room, a gift card, whatever it takes. Xavier leaned against the wall, trying to process it all. How does the district manager not see this? She shrugged, but her voice was bitter. He comes in once every few months, walks the cleanest rooms, chats with Vince for 10 minutes and leaves. They returned to the carts. He glanced at the schedule pinned near the laundry room, only 2 names listed for the next day, Sierra and Ava. The rest of the slots were marked TBD. How long has it been like this? He asked. Since January, maybe longer. We used to have 5 or 6 regulars, then hours got cut and people left. No one's replaced them. He scanned the room again. The smell of bleach never quite covered the dampness. Later that afternoon, he caught a glimpse of Vince speaking with a man in a navy polo near the side entrance. The man carried a clipboard, but didn't look like a health inspector or staff. Curious, Xavier waited until they finished and the man walked out. He found Vince in the office 10 minutes later reviewing a spreadsheet. Who was that guy? Xavier asked. Vince didn't look up. None of your business. He looked like he was taking notes. He's from corporate, surprise visit. Xavier's heart jumped. Corporate from HQ? No. Local field audit. They check inventory, payroll, that kind of thing. I handled it. Did he ask to speak to staff? Vince raised his eyes. Why are you asking? Just wondering how things went. They went fine. I told him we're short-staffed but managing. That's all he needed. Xavier nodded slowly. Did he check any rooms? No, not his job. He's not OSHA. Xavier left the office, fists tight in his pockets. They were skating by barely, but it wouldn't last. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the parking lot, he saw Ava sitting on a bench behind the supply shed. She looked hollowed out. He took a seat beside her without speaking. After a few minutes, she whispered, he told me I'm getting my hours cut next week. Because of Monday, he said, my reliability in question. I've been here over a year. I've never even been late. He didn't respond. The anger had settled deeper now, not fire, but weight. Something cold and steady. You can't let him get away with it, she said. He turned to her. What would you do if you had the chance to speak to someone higher up? I'd tell them everything. I'd name names. I'd show them the pictures I've taken. You have photos, she nodded. I've been documenting things. Mold, leaks, broken locks. I didn't know who to send them to. He considered that. Would you be willing to hand them over? She looked at him, uncertain. Why? Xavier stood. Because I can do something with them. She blinked. You're a cleaner. He didn't reply, just held out his hand. She reached into her bag and passed him a flash drive. Be careful, if Vince finds out. He won't. That night, Xavier didn't sleep. He opened the drive on his laptop and sorted through the files. Dozens of photos, all time-stamped. Water damage. Electrical outlets with exposed wires. Mattress tags that hadn't been replaced in years. Photos of time cards with altered hours. Even a capture of a text message from Vince warning a worker not to make a fuss about faulty fire alarms. He made a call from his burner phone. It rang twice before a voice answered. "Yeah, this is Graves. I need you to fly out." A pause. "You serious? Tomorrow, Springfield, bring 2 people from HR quietly. You found something? I found everything." He ended the call and loaded the photos onto a secure folder. Then he drafted a list of names, every staff member he'd worked with, every supply shortage, every safety risk. He wrote it all down in clean, direct language, no emotion. Just the truth. By morning, teams from HQ would be on site, and when they arrived, there would be no warning, no rehearsal. Vince would have to answer for all of it, and Xavier would no longer be Tommy. The next morning started the same way every shift did: stale air, the low hum of vending machines, and the dull ache of exhaustion. But today, a white SUV rolled into the parking lot at dawn. No logos, no uniforms. Just 3 people stepping out, each carrying a clipboard or a laptop bag. They didn't ask where the manager's office was. They already knew. Xavier stood at the far end of the hallway, watching from behind a cracked supply closet door. He waited until they disappeared inside. Then he walked to the stairwell, took off his gloves, and headed back to his room. He changed out of the uniform for the last time, pulled the ID badge from his hip, and left it on the desk. By the time he stepped into the office, Vince had already raised his voice. "No one said anything about a compliance visit. I need to call Joel." One of the women, a tall woman with short hair and a firm expression, didn't look up from her screen. "You'll speak with us first, Mr. Hanley, then you can make your calls." Vince turned around when he heard the door open. His eyes landed on Xavier, and for a second there was confusion. Recognition came slowly, like a shadow crawling across his face. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Xavier nodded once to the compliance team. "This won't take long." Vince stepped forward, voice sharp. "You lied to me. You applied under a fake name." "I did," Xavier said, "because if I hadn't, I never would have seen what you let happen here." The woman closed her laptop and looked at Vince. "Mr. Graves is the founder and owner of this company. You'll want to listen." Vince's face shifted, indignation fading into something more uncertain. He looked between them, then sat down slowly. Xavier took a seat across from him. "Let's talk about how you've been running this place." "I've kept it afloat," Vince said. "Staffing's been tight everywhere. We're not the only ones struggling." "You didn't just struggle," Xavier said. "You pushed people past the line of safety. You forced sick employees to work. You neglected repairs until rooms were unlivable. You lied to corporate about conditions." Vince leaned back. "You think I made those choices because I wanted to? I've been trying to keep numbers in the black. You set those targets." Xavier's voice stayed low. "I set standards, not shortcuts, not retaliation, not intimidation. I trusted managers to lead people, not squeeze them." The woman opened a folder and slid a copy of Ava's time card across the desk. "We've confirmed multiple instances of undocumented hour reductions. Several employees were penalized without cause. And we're opening a formal investigation into falsified maintenance reports." Vince didn't respond. Xavier stood. "You're relieved of your position, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the property once you've gathered your things." "You're making a mistake," Vince said. "You don't know what it's like trying to run this place with no resources." Xavier looked him in the eye. "I know exactly what it's like. I did it myself with less than you ever had." He walked out without waiting for a reply. Downstairs, the front desk felt quieter than usual. Noel was behind the counter. He glanced up, confused to see Xavier in different clothes. "You're not on shift," he said. "No," Xavier said. "I'm not." He stepped around the desk and leaned on the counter. "How long do you plan to stay here?" Noel frowned. "I don't know, I've got rent." "And this is steady." "Steady's not the same as safe," Xavier said. "You've seen things here that shouldn't happen. Why didn't you speak up?" Noel's voice lowered. "Because people get fired when they speak up. And nobody listens." "I'm listening now." Noel hesitated, then said, "The front doors don't always lock at night. Vince had me disable the alarm on them because it kept glitching. I told him it wasn't safe. He said it was cheaper than replacing the panel. Xavier nodded. You'll give that statement to HR if you're willing. Noel looked at him, uncertain. Then, finally, he gave a slow nod. Xavier left the desk and walked past the vending machines to find Sierra kneeling beside the laundry bins, folding towels into neat stacks. She looked up, brow creased. You're not in uniform, she said. No, he said. I'm not. She stood, brushing lint from her sleeves. You're not a housekeeper. No, I'm the CEO, she blinked once. You're kidding, he shook his head. I built this company, I trusted people to run it the right way. I was wrong. Sierra crossed her arms, unsure. So what happens now? We get a new manager who's just like the last one. No, he said. That ends today. He explained the audit team, the termination, the investigation underway. She listened without interrupting. Then she asked, what about Ava? She's getting her hours reinstated, he said. And she'll be compensated for every shift she worked under threat of discipline. She's not the only one. Sierra nodded slowly. And us, you're getting backup. 3 temporary staff from nearby locations will rotate in starting tomorrow. We're bringing in a safety contractor to assess the building. Any room that doesn't meet standards will be closed for repairs. She looked at him. You really think a few new people will fix this? No, he said. But it's a start. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. This is for you, it's not a bonus, it's a thank you for doing more than anyone should have to. She didn't reach for it. You really saw all of it. I did, he said. And I'll carry it with me. That afternoon, HR hosted a closed-door session in the break room. Staff were invited one by one to speak confidentially. Xavier stayed out of sight, letting the process happen without his presence steering it. By evening, the team had begun posting signs on rooms marked for closure. A local contractor arrived to inspect the roof. Maintenance logs were pulled. Every document Vince had signed was being re-verified. Xavier stepped outside and leaned against the railing on the second floor. The sunset lit the parking lot in soft orange. He watched Sierra guide the 2 new staff through the supply room. Ava waved to him from a distance. He waved back. He didn't stay the night. He left before dark, heading back to Kansas City with the flash drive still in his coat pocket and a yellow notepad filled with names he hadn't known a week ago. On Monday, a company-wide memo went out. It didn't name names. It didn't tell stories. But it made one thing clear. Field audits would now be unannounced. Safety violations would result in immediate intervention. And any staff member could report concerns directly to a new hotline answered not by a call center, but by a small team inside the CEO's office. 3 weeks later, the Springfield Motel hired a new manager. Her name was Karina. She had 10 years of experience, a background in social work, and a reputation for rebuilding broken teams. She met with every employee one-on-one. She started by listening. Xavier visited once quietly without announcement. He stayed in the same room he'd cleaned that first night. It smelled different now. Fresh paint. Clean air. He didn't make a speech. He didn't ask for praise. He just walked the halls, nodded to the staff, and left the envelope he'd once given Sierra taped to the inside of the supply closet. Inside was a single note. You kept this place standing. Now let's rebuild it right.